Hi, it's Kevin, and today we're recording another Lightroom editing video. These are photos from my trip while I was paddleboarding down the Lower Salt River just outside of Mesa, Arizona. This is the picture we're going to be editing today, and it's a beautiful image. I think it's called High Key, where you have really bright highlights because it was shot around somewhere between 3 and 4 maybe. In fact, let's just look. This was shot at 4:28, right? And so the sun in Arizona is extremely bright, especially on the water. And I had pulled over to try to get a picture of some belted kingfishers. I sadly did not get any, but then I turned and I saw this image and I saw it happening slowly. I saw the horse walking, I saw the paddleboarders, and I just knew that the horse was going to walk into frame like this, and I really love it. And I did go super fast on the shutter speed because I want this to be an artistic print. I wanted it to be black and white. The moment I saw it, I knew this was a black and white situation. And the reason why it's going to be black and white in the high shutter speed is these highlights are just so bright. Even at 1000 over 3000, 1 over 3200, I still got such a bright highlight on this image. If you watch my previous video with the horses, I talk about how I could have gone a faster shutter speed, but I would have lost some of that information in the shadows. This is a good example of that because you can see a lot of detail in these highlights, but almost no information in the shadows. Just raw. This is the raw image. I could pull some of that texture out. I am going to do an edit. I did a test post just to see if I could find the person in the image before I made this edit. And people really like this picture. And even my mobile phone edit of this picture was really well received. So I'm excited to get into this edit on the computer. And if we look at the settings, the one thing that it was shot at ISO 400. I am shooting birds at this time, so I set my camera to auto ISO, and then it's manual shutter speed and manual aperture, but it's auto ISO because then as the bird's moving in and out of shadows, I can still capture a decent image. And I had whipped around from shooting birds to take this picture, so I know that's why it's at ISO 400. It probably would have been fine shooting at ISO 200 and maybe a slower, maybe 1 over 2000 shutter speed. But this is what I got, and it really does. I think it does create a really nice opportunity to create an artful, touching moment that expresses just what the experience is and has really become paddling down the Lower Salt River, because everybody who paddles down the river is always looking for the horses. Not, I mean everybody, but hyperbole, right? The horses have just become iconic, and for a lot of paddlers, it's the reason why they go down the river. I love this image because while this person's probably recognizable to themselves, not very recognizable to other people, their eyes are hidden, that's a contrast to my advice in previous wildlife. This is where we're transcending from just a wildlife picture to an artistic expression, right? The eyes are hidden. One other thing that's really cool about this image is the fact that this head and the hat kind of mirror the angle. They're like parallel. So it gives this like posed feeling to it, even though everybody looking at this who has any knowledge will know that this is a wild horse, unposed, and was serendipity, really. And I'm very proud of the way it gives, and the light gives this really nice touch that gives it the highlight. Where, for example, I say we need eyes in an image to draw us in. The highlights in this image are what are drawing us in. So let's get into this edit. First off, it's gonna be black and white. You can already see how that changes the image. And then we're gonna go to a 16:9 edit. And one of the beauties of this 16:9 is we're going to get some of this beautiful change. This is an eddy in the water. You can see where the water's flowing is the lighter gray, and then there's an eddy that's in the shade. There's some large cottonwood trees to the left, and they created shade and eddies, and it creates this nice change in the foreground, which is really beautiful. Now, I want as much room to the back of the paddleboard as I can get, because the front is going to be heavy. And the debate is, this is following the rule of thirds, is where do I want this line to fall on the horse? Is it more captivating? I think it is more captivating for us to put it here, because it does it's two things at once, right? You got the rule of thirds happening with the horse, and then you also have her frame being centered, so it really draws the eyes in. Really beautiful. Now we're going to up the contrast a bit, and we're going to lower the highlights, and that brings a little bit more detail and gradient to the edge of the highlights, so that they're not quite so sharp in the hair, for example. And then we're going to raise the shadows. And I really wanted to see on the computer how this changes the image. Raising the shadows brings her out. What if we got rid of that contrast? So the horse has a darker face and a lighter complexion in the back. You can see these spots if we lower the contrast all the way. This isn't the image we're going to end up. This is just for analysis purposes. And I'm definitely going to bring the contrast back in, because to me, it makes the image look more fine art. And then I don't want her identifiable. So I'm going to use mask right away, because the horse is the main subject to me. Well, the horse is part of the main subject. You have the person and the horse, and as you can see, even the AI has gone, this is the subject. It's combined them both, and we are able to identify that that's not actually what we want. So I'm going to use the brush tool, and I'm going to remove okay, I'm trying to remove the selection, the paddleboard and the person from the selection. And for some reason, Lightroom is not recognizing. Which is just, this is a Lightroom problem. I'm going to figure it out. I'm gonna have to experiment a little bit. One thing we can do is just delete this mask, go back to, and then we're gonna hit minus, and we're gonna use brush. And I just find sometimes you have to repeat things for Lightroom, and that's how you get around. It's still not it is still not removing the main subject, so I cannot get it to, so we're gonna try the selection tool. Let's see if we can get, okay, that's not bad. That's actually really good. Zoom in, and we're gonna make the brush smaller. Sometimes you just have to find what works. The computer was not working with me to do a subtraction on the brush, but this selection is working. Now, it did pick up the paddle, so I'm hoping that we can get, you know, this is just one of those things that happens. It's the Lightroom app updates, and then suddenly your whole process of doing photography has to adjust. So instead of doing selection, I'm gonna add with the brush because I don't need it to be perfect. And it's not such a big area. I do wanna be mindful. Brushing is when you lose a lot of time. You get sucked into brushing, and then suddenly you find yourself spending hours trying to get the perfect outline of your selection. And in this modern world where we have to pump out so many pictures to be noticed, I just recommend to any photographers out there that if you're in it to win it, you're trying to do this consistently, just know that that's where your time will disappear. So we're gonna definitely want this tail in the image. I don't really need the edges of the tail. And I'm gonna soften this cut right here. Might come in and soften right here just because I'd rather have it a soft gradual thing than to be weird and speckled. Speckled can cause lots of problems. The speckles being caused by the hairs. The computer's like, how do I deal with the hair? And I'm like, did I do that? I did do that. Well, let's see if because of, okay, well, that's good. Luckily, I was able to undo, and then we can add here, and we'll go back and we'll fix that because sometimes it's faster just to undo. I don't want to get stuck trying to troubleshoot Lightroom. That's not the goal. And that's real life. Is, I think, even family photographers, you have to put out these pictures so fast. So you don't want to get stuck doing something that doesn't really add to the image. And right now, I'm not even sure how much I want to raise these shadows. I do. I mean, I love the spots on the horse, especially these horses. They have scars. They have scars from the bushes, the branches, the cactus, and they're constantly walking through things. And now I don't know if I want it all the way. I want the spots to be hinted at, not necessarily seen. I don't want the face to look completely cut off. So I'm gonna raise the shadows. I experimented with contrast because contrast will raise the black the in the shadows a little bit, and then I'm lowering blacks, and we're just gonna play this game of blacks versus shadows to the point where, because I want what I'm trying to get, the goal is to get this head to gradually come into the horse rather than looking cut off. When I just did the shadows, it looked like the head was all black and then the body was white, and which might be true to life. It might look exactly like that, but I want it to be much more gradual. And so that's one other thing. Now, next we're going to bump the clarity, because clarity will bring those spots out. And it really brought the leg out. As we raise clarity, you can really see that leg coming out. And to me, that makes the image look just a little more. Okay, so dehaze hides. If we haze the image a little bit, it does bring the spots out, and it doesn't completely make a weird transition of light from the head to the body. I just don't like this butt getting so much brighter than the face, because then your eye, if you're like looking around and you're scanning, this is what you're seeing from the corner of your eye. Like, that's what I'm looking at, is I'm like not looking at the picture, but what am I seeing from the picture? It's this right here. So I'm actually going to lower this, because that's what we did to get it. This is what makes it look intentional. And taking the time to do this is what makes it look professional. More than just, I'm trying to reach the level of photography for myself where it's more than just hoping I get the perfect image when I pull the shutter, that I'm learning how to manipulate the information I have to express the ideas that I want to express. Okay, so now we're back in global edits, and these global edits are going to be important, critical. We got the blacks, the shadows, the highlights, the midtones, and we're just going to play with the curve just to see if it. So as you see, the fast flowing water that's in the sunlight is what's really adjusted by this midtone. And like, if we want it to look whiter, we can raise that up, but I don't like how contrasty it makes the bodies. So if we lower that, it's too gray. So I actually think they're just gonna stay where they're at. Now, the shadows here, this is affecting the foreground, the background, and the horse the most. And I don't want it lowered. I wonder if there's a way to zoom on this, on the curve, because that's kind of where we were at. That's where we're at. And then if we raise these up ever so much, it really brings out the tail of the horse, which basically, it seems like that's what I'm playing with this entire time, with all the different settings. And you're not wrong. If we go black, you see how it makes the horse's form start disintegrating into the background. I don't want that. I don't want to do global curves. I'm deciding that now. Global curves it's too much. And so I'm not going to mess with the global curves. I am going to bump the clarity globally just to 10. And dehaze, we're going to do -3. And just the ever subtle amount. Then we'll do vignette. Because then it really brings the focus on these highlights, and we'll add grain to the image. I am going to denoise this because I'm cropping so much, and I'm using a GH5, Panasonic GH5, which isn't known for having the most tasteful of noise in camera. So I definitely wanted to remove some of the weird noise going on in the background. And we're going to look at sharpening right now. And sharpening's really making the horses pop out in the way I wanted. It's not changing the color of the leg, and that was making it so that it was the only thing I was seeing. But it is bringing out the form of the leg, which is wonderful. And masking is where we get to decide what actually is caught by the sharpening tool. And as you can see, these little, if you look at the horse, you can see all the little scars and spots and marks on it. That's what we want sharpened more than everything else. I'm going to create a mask for the background and de-sharpen it in this area because I don't want these weird spots that are getting crispy to be so crispy. They're drawing my focus, which they didn't actually draw my focus before. So we're selecting the background. And we're going to go to details. And we're going to lower clarity. Now, I really hope I can subtract from the mask. Okay, so we select the background and then we go from here. We're subtracting and we're going to use a linear gradient. No. Okay, that worked. Because I just want it to be I just want the background that I'm editing to be this line of black. Usually when you have a gradient, there's an ability to select how the gradient works. And I'd like to have it a little further down, but it is not cooperating. So I'm going to lower clarity in the background, lower texture, and I'm going to go to sharpness, and I'm just going to lower that sharpness. See, now they're there, but they're not being focused on. I much prefer that to what was there going on previously. And we're going to try to no, I don't want to duplicate. Okay, well, wait. It just had the setting I was looking for. Okay. And then we're going to create another mask and we're going to do a linear gradient up. And this is just going to be for the foreground. I just want it a little bit darker on the edge. So we're going to lower the exposure, not too much. Just to really get that in the field. Now we might raise clarity. I'm just raising clarity because it's water and I like the feel that clarity gives me on water, and it really makes it feel completely different. When you add clarity to water, it can really increase the So the problem I'm having here is the mask that I was editing completely switched. So the background work I just didn't work out. So I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna start down here. Okay. And then we're going to do the clarity. We're going to subtract. I'm going to actually go straight to sharpness because that's what I saw the most benefit from before. And yeah, we're going to just lower sharpness. And then we're going to increase the noise reduction. And hopefully this doesn't flip-flop like it did before. I don't know why it did that. That was so weird. I'll have to watch the video and figure out when did it happen. Was it something I did? Who knows? But I think that this is starting to look like an image that I could be really proud of. I'm going to remove, because this is more fine art-ish, I am going to remove random spots. That stand out, that I don't know what's causing it. And analyze. Does this convey the feelings that I wanted to convey? We're going to raise the highlights just so they're a little sharper or a little more eye-catching. I love the fact that the horse's tail just barely is caught in the focus and this person's face is caught in the focus. One thing I am going to fix here is I don't like how messy this looks. So I'm just going to add a brush. And then I'm going to subtract on sharpness. And I think that that makes this look a much more smoother image. Yeah. And I might actually even add over here, because of this, there's these rocks on the edge of the water and the little rapids are making little splashes, and that caught the sunlight, but they're just on the edge of the depth of field. So some of it is catching sharpness and some of it isn't. It's right on the edge of the depth of field. So I feel like it turned out kind of ugly. And so I would like to lower that sharpness here. So that the sharpness is happening on her face and on the horse's back. You can see the image is very sharp right here. And I think that that's really drawing me in. The back of the paddleboard didn't get sharp, which is a little... I don't love the way it looks, but that's just the game. I don't think that any more editing of the sharpness will benefit me. One thing I like is there's this hint of a reflection of, I think it is trees, but it almost looks like it's her, but it's not her, I don't think. But now the image really pulls in. I think getting rid of those sharp jaggedy marks on the edge of the depth of field really is adding a lot. I'm gonna do the same thing here. And this is between the legs of the horse, right? It's like right on the belly. And now these white spots are splashes, so I'm not gonna go in between each of the splashes and do this, but just for the general background, I think adding that really helps the image a lot. I'm gonna look at where the red is. We're gonna go up. We're gonna subtract. We're going to remove it from the bag that accidentally got caught. Is that what was going on? I might have not had that switched, which would be why it was being so weird. That might have been what was going on, is I didn't have this switched, which is the O. O is the hotkey. I might have pressed O. And that would explain why it wasn't showing the mask being deleted. It was flipping between deciding to show it or not show it. And I've just decided to commit to the bit where I'm just gonna subtract this line, this edge of the depth of field, and just to make it a smoother transition. And I'm going to do another mask, and I'm going to address the I don't like, if you look at the image, you see this handle, you see these D rings on the paddleboard, they're just on the edge of the depth of field. And I don't like the fact that it looks mirrored, like duplicated, and then there was one, but now there's two. I don't like that. I'd rather it just be blurry. And so I'm going to make its own mask. And you can see this is where it's sharp, and then it slowly gets less and less sharp in the back. And I want this to only cover the paddleboard because I will decide how much influence I want this to have. So if we lower the sharpness, you can see the paddleboard starts blending in more with the background, where if we raise the sharpness, crispier. Yes, I am happy doing this. I am going to lower the clarity, and the edge of the paddleboard disappeared as we did the clarity. So now you don't know where the water is and where the paddleboard is. But that's something to keep in mind. I really actually saw someone else say photographers make a mistake when they try to think of their images as 3D. The truth is your pictures are always 2D, and understanding how 2D affects the way we view something is what it means to be a photographer. I like it when my images feel like they have depth to them and they feel 3D, and I understand what the nuance of what the person was saying was that by understanding it is 2D, you can then manipulate it to look more interesting. Even with what I just did, I don't really like the way it turned out. It's too blurry, and it detracts from the goal. One thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the whites. Just a bit. And I'm going to try to lower the highlights, because it's the shine on the D rings that's bothering me so much. And I don't want to raise the contrast because I don't like the fact that it's affecting the water behind it. So I do like the way the grain is adding to the structure. I am so zoomed in now, I'm at 100%. I don't know if that necessarily... You see these little specks of white? They're not a big deal, but they're what's catching my eye, right? So I'm trying to lower whites to see if it minimizes those specks. Let's go to effect and lower clarity or texture. Dehaze makes it blacker. I think that this is where I have to draw the line. I'm manipulating, but I am not trying to change the image from what was. And I'm a little worried that what I'm doing is changing it. I don't like how gray everything got. I think I'll leave the softness, but I'm not going to go in and remove each of those dots. Even though I don't love the way they look, to be honest, but that's like, I'm not posing a picture. I'm not posing a model and capturing something that is going in a magazine for an assignment. This is literally just my own work. It's my own decision. Now there's these horses behind, and this is where, so this image is basically done. This is as far as I really want to take it. Any more manipulation is too far, in my opinion. Really, this is about as far as I'm gonna go. Leave room for myself if I decide to change later, but this is as far as I want to take this image. Notes to self in the future is, I saw the paddle border, I saw the horse, and I see these horses behind it. It would be nice not to have those legs in the image, but they are in the image, and that's okay. And some people won't be bothered by that. One thing we could do is this background. Well, no, I'm not going to mess with the background. I'm going to make a whole different brush. And I'm going to select the horses next to the main subject horse. And as you can see, I think I might be falling into that trap that I warned you about, where I said, oh, if you start using brushes, you'll find yourself masking all these different things, and then you'll be 2 hours later and you won't even recognize exactly what your goal was. Okay, so we got the mask, and we're gonna subtract it from the tail. I'm so glad that we figured out why the subtraction wasn't working. Just sometimes when you don't have show the mask on, it gets real funky about how it does it. And I couldn't tell if the it wasn't removing it from my eye, so I didn't know if it was working. And then I'm going to lower exposure in that selection, because I don't want that. What I don't want is the white to be white there. I want it to be gray. Gray becomes ghostly. And by making it gray, by making it gray, we leave the white on the things I want people to see. White is on the face of the horse, the hat, the shoulder, the water droplets, the front of the paddleboard. By lowering the whites on that selection, we have now made it so that the eye naturally sees the focus of the image. The subject has white on it. The background does not have white in it. I love the fact that we catch a little bit of the hairs on the chinny chin chin. You know how I just said that I'm done? I think every artist has gone through this iteration where they're like, oh, I'm done. And then they do something to add to it. I'm just going to check the denoise settings. And voila. That's our image. I'm proud of this image. I already know people are going to like it. because I did a test edit and on my phone and people loved it. I think this is only going to speak louder. I think I'm going to save this version. And this is going to be, this is for me, but I'm going to be recording. I'm just going to save as recording. And then I'm going to select the person because I want to know if I can make it so that they aren't identifiable. So we're going to zoom in. And we're going to, I'm not worried about the highlights so much. The highlights are going to be what they're going to be. I'm just going to outline them. I'm not too worried about, I'm just trying to get their general form and get the things that make them identifiable. So that face. And then I'm going to bump the brush up. I just like to do the outline and then fill in the outline, you know. So we're filling in the outline just to, and this is, I really wouldn't do this typically, but if so street photography, I've done videos on street photography. I don't have a problem taking pictures of people. There is a, I'm just going to reset this. Because it took on the settings from another one of the masks, which wasn't my point. Even though I am going to lower the exposure. We're going to bump the contrast just to look at it. And I'm too zoomed in to get an overview. But this, the question is, does this hide the person more so that I'm more comfortable printing this image? To me, they're still just as identifiable as they were before. It does add some grace to the form. Like if we bump the exposure, that definitely reveals them more. I don't want to do that. Let's lower the shadows. If we lower the shadows, it brings a focus on parts that I'm actually trying not to bring focused. I don't like them turning into black. Like just this pure silhouette, it doesn't look good. I'm really struggling with this because I do want to respect privacy in some sense, that, you know, when you're on the river, you don't want some random person taking your picture and making you feel like every time you go outside that you need to worry about that. But at the same time, there is no expectation of privacy in this particular setting, and I don't feel like I'm highlighting something negative about them. I'm simply, and I do feel like if someone looked at this picture and said, "Is that you?" they could be like, "No, it's not me." So I don't feel too bad. I don't feel like this is invasive to the, which is just one of the questions I have. It's like one of the reasons why, you know, I love street photography, but I do like to do it as silhouettes. I do like to do it in a way where it's a highlight of humanity rather than the individual. And if I'm going to take a picture of an individual, I would like to have their permission. And I did post this image in a local group in the hope that they respond, and that would make me feel a lot more comfortable. But at the same time, I know I'm in the legal bounds of what I'm allowed to do as a photographer. So I'm going to continue using the image as I see right, because I own the copyright and I am in my legal bounds. So although I did try to just be a little more subtle about who it is, I don't really feel like it's adding to the image. I don't feel like it's even helping, really. I think that's as much as I'm gonna get. I keep going back and forth. And when I'm going, I think that's what I do personally, is I find when I'm editing and I'm not sure what to do, I start going back and forth between options. And that's when I know that I'm wasting time, really, because it doesn't add to the story at all, and it doesn't make the image look more beautiful. And if I obscure them completely, it detracts from the whole story of the moment, which is a person going down a river takes the same form of a horse as it walks across that said river. And I don't want to detract from the story too much. So that's where I'm going to leave it. I am really proud of this image. I think it touches people, especially those who know this river, go down this river. They will enjoy this image, and I'm happy to share it. I love photography so much. This is my passion, and editing is the hardest part of photography for me. I'm trying to learn how to do it so I can help people do it and just get a little bit ahead. I believe that photography is only going to get more and more popular, and that these moments are going to be shared by a lot of people. And so I'm just trying to learn how to help. And making these videos, my goal is to show where I went, how I captured the image, and then how I expressed the emotions I felt with the images I got. I hope that you like this. If you do, please like and subscribe, leave a comment. Anything really helps at this point, and it is really meaningful for me. So any advice is wonderful advice, any critique even, really. I'm just looking to grow and learn. So please do feel welcome, and have a good day.